Hey everyone, I see folks are already logging on and joining. Welcome. We're gonna wait a few moments just to allow some folks to come on in. But please feel free to enter into the chat. We're gonna wait till 11 o'clock before we really get started. But in the meantime, while we are waiting, please let me know. Type in the chat box where you're joining us from. You can let me know what church or ministry you are representing, and also let me know from which state as well. Excited to have everybody on here today. I'm going to give folks some time just to log in today. I see United Christian Church in Detroit and newly head of media ministry. Welcome, Tina. Glad to have you. Hoping we're going to glean a lot from each other today. Absolutely. Just going to give some folks some time. I know we're scheduled to start right at 11. Folks are probably transitioning from a few other sessions, so just giving some folks some time to get together. I'm going to also be sharing my PowerPoint screen. Tina, I know you're on. Tina, can you see my PowerPoint screen? First AME, welcome. Okay, I think that is now up on there. We're gonna get started in a little bit. I just wanted to make sure that our, okay. Excellent. Okay, well, it's just about 11 o'clock and we don't want to belabor the moment. I want to thank everybody for logging on and joining us as we begin to engage, to think about the machine behind media. There's so much to talk about as we're pertaining to online ministry, media ministry, and what it takes in order to get to that next space, in order to get to that next level, or get to that next, criteria that you've set out for yourself in media and in ministry. And so glad to be able to join you all. I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to honor for this particular event, Rev Marc and the entire leadership team of Rethinking Church to serve the digital age. This is a great opportunity for us to get into the nitty-gritty of what I like to call the nuts and bolts of online ministry, pertaining to, especially as it pertains to media. What you're going to find as we present and we talk today is that these things are interrelated. The media and online ministry is inseparable. So we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of it, get into the real nitty gritty. I'm talking about, we're going to nitpick just about everything, because that is the level of not only just creativity, but that is the level of excellence in detail that it takes in order to effectively get something across to somebody. One thing I like to say is that one thing I like to say is that when we were in the church building, when we were in the church house, it was so easy for us to when there was a mistake, for that to just to be, that just to be passed over. But in media and in ministry, now online, those mistakes are magnified to the 10th degree. And so for us, our job and our role is how do we get to a place where we can become excellent at what we do, excellent at how we present, how we create, and how we do what we do. So I see there's a lot of people joining us, and we're just getting ready to get started. So welcome. Please let me know where you're joining us from. One thing you'll know, I'm a former teacher, and I believe wholeheartedly in laboratories. I believe that this is a lab, and we're going to all glean and learn from each other. And so I'm excited for us to present. I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to get off and go to our PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to get started on this thing. We are going to get started on this thing. All right. Here it is. There it is. Okay. While I'm here, it's harder for me to see. All right, here we go. I'm going to pull this up right next door so I can keep that comment section going, so I can see you all as well. Like I mentioned, we're talking about the machine behind media. This is the nuts and bolts of what it takes for online ministry. Briefly, go really quickly as I share with you all. Go a little bit about myself. As I tell you, my name is Rev Marc Lavarin. I serve as the assistant to pastor for our online ministry at the Alfred Street Baptist Church. If you all are familiar with Alfred Street Baptist Church content, it is a pleasure and it's a joy to be able to work on presenting that content, curating that content, producing that content, conceptualizing it in order for us to meet the demands of this day and age. And so I want to get really into the nuts and bolts of what it takes. I want to start off with the simple truth that I start off in our online ministry every single time we have someone who is interested in online ministry at Alfred Street. We start with this first thing. I start with the Apostle Paul. And that might sound weird, why to start with Paul, but I start with Paul, and I always ask the question is, how many more people would the Apostle Paul had reached if he had the internet? Because the reason why is framing it is because one of the most important things for us to understand is that technology has always been used. It has always been used it's the only thing that has differed is the method in which we use it. So Paul's method was letters. That's the method and the means by which the message was being communicated from one place to another, from a place where people were not. But Paul sends a letter to Rome. Paul sends a letter to Corinth. It's the same letter. It's the same means of technology. We have been gifted with an opportunity to reach more people than the Apostle Paul could have ever dreamed of. And so I always begin, and I always ask everyone who joins us and is interested in online ministry, who's interested in media. And the question is, if the Apostle Paul, if the early church had the means that we have today, how many more people could they have reached? And so it begins to start off with this simple truth that everyone who has a ministry, everyone, and this is true, everyone has an online footprint. Whether you have a website, whether you have a website, whether you have a YouTube channel, even if your church doesn't have a landing page, you have your online footprint. The lack of an online footprint is a footprint. Because the first thing people are going to do when they Google you, when they hear of you, is they're going to Google you. They're going to Google you. And if nothing shows up, that already says something about your ministry. So the question you need to come up with, and the question your ministry needs to come up with, the question your brand needs to come up with. I recognize people on here are not just church. It's not just churches on here. Maybe we probably have entrepreneurs, we have creatives on here. But the question you have to ask yourself is, what is your footprint saying about your ministry? That is critical. It's critical to understand what is your footprint. So if I Google your name, if I Google your ministry, what is your online footprint saying about your ministry? And it says a lot. Even if it says nothing, that may say more to people in this moment. In this day and age where everything is online, if the fact that you may not have a footprint may say more to people than you actually having the footprint there. If you do not have a footprint online, a source or a place where people can go to, a space, a landing page, that may be saying more about your ministry than anything. Before they even hear a message, before they see your content, before they join your community, if your footprint online is lacking, that says more than anything. They'll never get to the place where they can listen to your ministry, listen to your content, if your footprint says something that doesn't align with who they are. So we're going to get right into this nitty gritty piece of content. I like to say in online ministry, I like to say that there are three brands of online ministry. There's three important concepts pertaining to online ministry. Three important concepts. Those concepts are content, community, and creativity. The nuts and bolts of online ministry, make or break online ministry, content, community, and creativity. That is, the content is strictly relating to your message, what you have to say, your content. The community is strictly related to the people, who you're saying it to, who it is reaching. And yes, Tina, this presentation will also be made available for you all after. So you don't have to necessarily take too many notes. I have this presentation. Reverend Womack has the presentation. It'll be emailed to all of our participants as well. So the content, the community, and the creativity. The content, the message, what you have to say, the community, who you're saying it to, and not only who you're saying it to, but who is receiving it. Because there are some people that is in your community that you don't know. And those are the people we'll talk about. Those are the passerbyers online, the people who just come across your content. They are also a part of your community as well. So you have the content, you have community, and creativity. I'm going to argue in this presentation that creativity is the most important aspect of ministry because it's the difference. Everyone has content right now. Everyone has a community. It's the creativity. It's the difference. What is different about your message? What is different about your message and why people want to hear it? And the difference, the creativity, is what makes people actually listen to what you have to say. So it's when you're creating content, when you're creating a ministry, these three things have to come into your mind as you're creating. What do I want to say? Whom do I want to say it to? And how am I going to make it in a way that people want to listen to it? So let's go deeper on that. Let's go deeper on that. Our content. I want to push the button here, and I know I'm probably going to get some pushback for this, but in this day and age, you probably heard it said already that content is king. That's true. Content is king. That is our primary means of engagement, especially during the pandemic. I'd argue not just in pandemic, but in the rise of the technological advances that our society has made, content is the way people come into contact with your ministry. And so it's important that you're able to produce content that people can engage in. But it's also important in this day and age, and what we've been wrestling with here at the church is, let's just get it out of the way, competition. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about competition because the reality is, I know this is not popular, is we are all competing with each person. We're all competing with each household. We're all competing with the minds, the attention span of people. And what makes this harder is, and the reality that we have to accept this, we have to accept this as a church, is that you're no longer in competition with just the, Zion Baptist Church up the street. You're no longer in competition with, Shiloh Pentecostal down the street. Now you're in competition. The reality is that everyone now is in competition. The distance isn't a factor anymore. It's no longer this church is 5 minutes down the road, that church is 10 minutes down the road. Now we're all competing for everyone's attention. Now I want to say I want to say one thing. I want to first frame this biblically. Biblically, the gospel has always been in competition. Paul says in Galatians that I'm surprised, I'm a marvel at how quickly that you have gone on to a different form of gospel. Even from the conception of the early church, the gospel has always been in competition. There's always been a competing voice. And so think about this. We're not just competing against churches, but we're also competing against other institutions. We're competing against sporting institutions. We're competing against entertainment. We're competing against these other elements of entertainment around the world, these other elements of content. And one thing we have to admit to ourselves is that we're in competition. The question isn't a matter, it's not a matter of who I'm competing against. It really is a matter of what do I have to say that's worth bringing my voice into this competitive space. What do you have to say that makes your ministry different? I'm going to go back to this again, how important creativity, the difference of what you say is what's going to make you heard. It's not about saying it's not about saying what everybody else isn't saying, but it's about saying it differently. It's about saying in a way that people can engage and in a way that people want to hear. So competition, we just have to get to a place where we're okay with saying we're in competition. But there's also a benefit to this. There's a benefit in we get to lean into our competitive edge. And the question you need to ask yourself in order to lean into your competitive edge, what does my ministry do well? What does my ministry do well that no other ministry, no other group, no other content creator can do? Why is it important that I say this? Why is it important that we say this? Why is it important that we do this thing that is going to capture people's attention? So we're going to talk about leaning into our competitive edge. What makes your ministry worth watching? I'm going to come back to the research. I'm going to come back to the research point. I'm going to come back to the research point because actually, let me tackle it now. The reason why it's important for you to do research isn't for the sake of copying. It's for the sake of innovation. And this is how we start getting into the idea of creativity. You should have people in your ministry that are dedicated to research. You should have people in your community. If you're building an online ministry and an online program, an online media ministry, if you're talking about, it doesn't matter from what concept, you need to know the lay of the land. Simply put, you have got to know what is all, Reverend Marc, you're right, Reverend Womack, you know it, research and data. We're going to talk about data. I believe in the ministry of data. I believe in the ministry of data. But you need to know what is out there. You need to know what people are doing. And then you need to know what makes me, how can I contribute to this area of expertise? Let me give you an example. When the pandemic first hit, a lot of you probably saw the rise in panel discussions called Pastoring in the Pandemic. So, one of the first things, when Pastor Wesley came to us, is like, so what's out there? What is being done? What are people doing? We said, a lot of folks are doing pastoring in the pandemic. There were a ton of platforms that were addressing that issue. And so when we came to the table, we said, We want to address what it's like pastoring the pandemic, but we do not want to do what everyone else has been doing. Because why would people have sat through tens of hundreds of presentations about pastoring the pandemic? So we said it's important for us to address how the church has been handling this pandemic. We are not going to do a version of just having a Zoom link and getting a couple of pastors in order to present what it's like, because everyone else is doing it. What we're going to do is we're going to create a documentary. It's shifting the focus. We know people want to hear what we have to say. We know people want to hear what it's like pastoring in the pandemic. Everyone is already doing pastoring in the pandemic, so that the incentive of viewership isn't there anymore. So what we have to conceptualize this, we have this idea, everyone else is doing it. How can we bring the idea here so that this is something new and innovative? This is something that people want to see and want to be invested in. And so we said, you know what, we're going to create a new documentary. And we just started a new documentary called The Church Has Left the Building. You can go on our Instagram page right now just to see the trailer of it, because we wanted people to know that we were thinking about pastoring in the pandemic, about doing ministry in the pandemic, funerals and weddings, and how to cope in the pandemic and all that sort. But we didn't want to do the same thing over and over. And that's what makes research important. And that's what makes your competitive edge. I actually have a Post-it note on my here on my desk that says I'm always thinking of how we can reimagine what the church can be. How do we reimagine? How do we think that what is not being done? How do we get out of the mindset of just doing what everybody else is doing? Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts here. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of content. I believe there are three different types of content out there for churches and ministries. This is specifically for church. It would draw a little bit differently if you're in the area of music. But this is specifically, I think, for churches. And there probably is a good way to bring in music as an element as well. First type of content is what most of us traditionally have, and that's sermon-based content. Most of us online at churches have sermon-based content. The problem is everyone has sermon-based content. And so how do I get someone to listen to what I'm saying and what I have to say? I believe the message is good. I believe God was in it. I believe it's a prophetic word for our time. I believe God was all over it. But how do I get everybody and everyone to listen? How do I get more people to listen to it? How do I get my church to listen to it? How do I get the community in my city to listen to it? Is that we have to think of, again, thinking about being in competition. How do I enhance my product? And so here I'm listing some real practical ways to enhance what you do, whether it's on Sunday or it's the post-production, when you release it, when you put it on YouTube, when you put it on Facebook, when you post it on Instagram. Here are some practical ways to enhance your content. Simple, social media clips. If you want me to listen to your sermon, this clips that's going to engage me. Don't release on social media the entire on Instagram 60 minutes worth of your sermon. I will not have time to read all 60 minutes of to watch all 60 minutes of your sermon. Show me a clip. Show me a clip of your sermon. Show me a point of your sermon. You know, Instagram has these thing called reels. Give me a reel. Give me an IG video, a clip of motivation, and then tell me where I can get the whole sermon. Because if it moves me enough, I'm going to go after it. But you can't expect people in this day and age, you cannot expect people to sit through 60 minutes worth of your sermon, 60 minutes worth of your content. So you have to target, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this a little later about targeted posts, and we're going to talk about targeted posts. But it's important for you to release certain things. So give me a clip of your social media. We started at Alfred Street to engage the community, to give a different spiel. We started putting trailers of our sermon. So, you know, where pastor is preaching on the theme, I shall not fear. So we've worked with our communications team to create a trailer. And that trailer just kind of serves as almost like a hype video to the sermon, to get people engaged. It's to kind of get people thinking of the different ways in which that people can be in fear. It really is, in a way, when you think about it, this is drama ministry. This is drama ministry, except video drama. Then there's a video that's, when there's a movie that's getting ready to put out the trailer, and the purpose of the trailer is to get you excited for what you're about to watch. The same is true here in the sermon. Put out a trailer for folks. Let people put out a trailer, and before you preach a sermon on Sunday, let's say on Friday, you put out a trailer, or Saturday, you put out a trailer of what you're going to be preaching. What you're going to be preaching. And what does that do? That brings investment. People say, you know what? I sure have been dealing with some fear, and I want to know how to get over that. I want to know how to deal with that. And so you're getting people invested, even you haven't even preached your sermon yet. You haven't said a point yet. You haven't said anything yet. You haven't shared the text yet, but you just shared the trailer. I see, Sharon, I see you said, is the trailer on YouTube? If not, where? We usually put the trailer right before the sermon. So even when you click on the sermon, it says, I shall not fear, part 1. I think they're usually named, but let's just say, I shall not fear part 1. When you click on it, the first thing you're going to see is the trailer. And then it gets right into the sermon. All we're doing is engaging. But Sharon, you bring up a good point. You can curate a playlist on YouTube where you can just have your trailers for different sermon series. What's that going to do? It's going to cause people to get invested. You know what? That was such a good trailer. I wonder what he had to say about the topic. I wonder what she had to say about the issue, because the trailer was good. And all that is doing is engaging folks without you having to do for it. I don't know if I missed this point in my other slide. It's right here. It's right at the end of this slide. The last point is one of the most important points. The goal of content is for it to work for you, not for you to work for it. The goal of content is for it to work for you. You want your content to be able to be liked, comment, shared, because it's doing the work you don't have to do. You don't have to share it 100 times. Other people are sharing it. You don't have to like it 100 times. Other people are liking it. The goal of it is for you, for it to work for you. So that's the idea of sermon-based content. We all have sermon-based content, and the goal, and there's a second idea of content that's Bible-based content. Now, Bible-based content is different from sermonic content, because this is the idea of your Bible studies. This is your idea of teaching a lesson. Bible-based content is tricky because it's different than a preached moment. The preached moment usually comes in worship, so there's already a level of investment to stay in the service. I'll also add for you, it's interesting because the people say, Google says that the average watch time for a length of video, I believe a 60-minute video, is only 8 to 9 minutes. It's only 8 to 9 minutes. And so it's incredibly important to think about the ways you're going to engage the people. You have literally, if 8 to 9 minutes is the average length, that means you have about 2 to 3 and maybe even 1 to 2 minutes to keep someone for the 8 to 9 minutes. So you need to be able to really hone in on what you're doing. Your Bible-based content, let me say this because I know we're only halfway and there's a ton of content, and I just wanted to, this will be made available for you guys after this presentation. But your Bible-based content is more difficult than your sermonic-based content, because your Bible-based content doesn't take effect in the flow of a worship service. So your Bible-based, it's difficult, and I want to say you cannot. I'll leave it a room for interpretation for other people to add on. You need to find a way to present Bible study differently. It's hard to stand up and just do Bible study the way you've always done Bible study. You need to be able to engage biblical study differently. And the reason why is because you're not trying to reach groups in mass with content. Content really isn't made for people to be reached in mass. It's made to reach one person. And one person likes it enough that they share it and it reaches somebody else. You know, I think sometimes we try to produce content for everybody. But the content that really sticks, the reason why memes are so successful is because someone else views life the same way I do. I do that too, so I'm gonna create a meme about it. And you're just really reaching one person. And so the important goal of it, again, is to make the content work for you. So you have your sermon content, you have your Bible-based content. I suggest that when you're talking about a Bible-based content, I suggest that you get into a space and you create a space in an environment where it feels as if you're in the living room with somebody, that you're just talking about Bible one-on-one, not just addressing the entire church, but addressing it one-on-one. Let me get to another. Let me get to another aspect of this. But there's so much to say. There really, truly is so much to say. And let me also address this because I think it's true. I said there's competition. How do I enhance this? It's under sermon-based content, but it's not just sermon-based content. I believe it's for Bible-based content and motivational content as well. Is that you would be so surprised what different angles can do, camera angles can do to your ministry. We're talking about enhancing your content so that there's a level of difference and creativity in your content so that people are captivated in wanting to stay. Let me give you an example. At our church, when we are recording, Pastor Wesley will be preaching and there will be there's a 3-camera setup. There's one center in the middle and there's 2 right here. There's one with a far view and there's one that's a right close-up angle view. And this is what it does. The camera angle breaks up the content that you're already doing. It's hard. Remember, I told you people have an 8-minute span, 8 minutes. We actually, because of our analytics, and we're going to talk about research later, because of our analytics, we found that people at our church have a 16 to 17-minute span. Okay. And so with that, we're going to talk about YouTube and how to find your analytics. And that's so important. Your data and research is so important to how to create content. But what we found was that when you're preaching, and if we have preachers in the room, you know of the power of making eye contact with someone, the power of saying something where you're believing God brought me here to speak to you and God wanted me to tell you today. You know, we know of that power, and it's powerful when you're in that sermonic moment, in that preach moment where you're preaching to the entire congregation, but then you lock eyes with somebody. That's the gift of different camera angles. That's the gift, is when you're preaching into large about, you're talking to Alfred Street Online and how are you doing, Alfred Street Online, but then you're getting it right in the moment, you can turn around and look directly into the camera. And no longer are you preaching to the entire church, but now pastor's in my living room and he's preaching to me. She's preaching to me right now. No longer is she just talking to the entire congregation, but the different angle is now a close-up angle. And now someone feels like you're in their room. That's the difference of enhancing your content, enhancing what you bring to the table. The gift, I'm telling you, the gift of a different angle will go a long way. That is, it sounds tiny, but you have to remember that people are watching this for almost an hour every day. And it's hard to stay focused when there's just one shot from the back of the church that's just going directly up close. Get some movement. Get some people with cameras that are moving while people are in worship so we can see the difference in people in worship when they're moving and how they're, because in worship, and when people are in worship, they're not just standing still. It's a lively, people are moving. Some people are running. Some people are shouting. So give me the different angles that makes me feel as if you thought of my experience. Let me keep going because there's so much to say. Again, we're dealing with oversaturation. Everything has moved online, including people's work. What makes your content worth their time? What makes your content? I know you think your message is good, and I believe it is good too. Remember, because we're in competition, you need to believe that your content is worth people's time. If you don't believe your content is worth it, why should I? Why should I watch it? If you don't believe what you have to say, what you have to sing, how you have to do it is worth it, why should I waste my time? My 60 seconds, I already remember, statistics say we got about 1 to 2 minutes. Why should I waste that watching this? So everything has moved online. That's why targeted posts are one of the most important areas for your ministry. I believe your ministry should your ministry and your post, every content that you produce should have a purpose and should be action driven. What is the action step? What is the action step that you want people to take after watching or experiencing your content? Do you want them to like it? Do you want them to comment on it? Do you want it to share it? I want to push us beyond the likes. I want you to push the church, your ministry beyond the likes. While likes are good, likes does not mean they have engaged on a level of your content that you really want them to be invested in. If I share or if I comment, that shows me more of engagement than just a like. I know you want 100 likes on your post, or you want to reach the 500 likes on your. People now just double tap as they're scrolling, and so they'll double tap. Oh, that's my church. Double tap. That doesn't show me the type of engagement that I want. I want to hear from people, and when you share, I know that blessed you. Now, and you want some. I'm sharing this because it really impacted me, and I want it to impact you. Or if you comment, you're gonna tell me how this impacted you. So I want to push us beyond the like button, push beyond double tap, get to a space where you want people to communicate beyond the double tap. The double tap doesn't show us enough information. The double tap doesn't show us enough information. You want to get to the comments and the shares. That shows a level of engagement that goes beyond surface level double tap. So make sure that you know every time you post that it's purpose driven. And let me get to this saying as well. As a ministry or as a content creator, because that's what we all are, content creators here. We have to know the difference between community posts and member specific posts. And that's critical for your community engagement or disengagement. If you only post things that are available for member specific, you're going to miss your community that's outside of your membership that's on the roll are going to think, well, I like this church, but they only talk to their members. They're never talking to me. They only talk to their members. They're never really talking to me. And so we have to move beyond posts that just share what time the fellowship is going to happen. We have to move beyond the post we're going to move beyond the post that just shares, that just gives announcements. Announcements have a place. And I want to argue with you is that you can create a space on your socials for people to get announcements, but that should not dominate your content. It shouldn't just be announcement. We have, even if it's a major ministry. So let's say, for example, you're hosting an event and you have a flyer. That flyer may be nice, but what's going to be better than that flyer is a trailer. If you show me who's coming, show me what they've been doing, and how they've been doing it. Show me, you might have booked a powerful preacher. Show me pictures and images and video of them preaching to get me excited and invested. You have a music artist coming in. That's gonna go a longer way than just posting a flyer that has the date, the time, and the people on it. That's gonna get you a like. That's just gonna get you a double tap. I like it. That means I was aware. But when you get a video up there, you get a promo video, you get a trailer up there, and you talk about what you're getting, what you're excited for, that's going to get people to comment. That's going to get people to share. And now that's going to reach beyond your community. So I want to challenge you to move beyond member-specific content or just content that are just announcement pages. Flyers work and they're okay. but better than a flyer is a promo video. Better than a flyer is engagement. Why? Because there are some people who may not be able to actually attend your event, but the promo they saw that might have blessed them. They might have heard the song that was being sung by the guest worship leader that's coming to lead worship. That might have blessed them. And as a result, now they're like, man, this song is really good. What's the name of it? You've just found interaction and engagement with one of your community members. So be careful not to oversaturate your content with just announcements. Let's keep moving because we got a lot and there's a lot of time. So remember, content is king. Content is king, but the right content is most important. Targeted posts, do not overpost. Do not overpost and do not oversaturate announcement videos. Again, is your content working for you or are you working for the announcement? If you spent you spent hours or you paid so many people to put a graphic up together and all you're going to post is a graphic, your content is not working for you. You're working for the content. Go beyond the announcement. Get mashups of promo videos, announcements. Show the people some powerful sermons, powerful music. Get some music behind there. That's going to get people invested. And then we talked about there's 3 types of content. I want to move quickly. Community, knowing your audience. We talked about it. Numbers matter. I can't begin to say this enough. Numbers matter. Why do numbers matter? Numbers matter because numbers represent people. This isn't about, I want to get 1,000 people to like my post. I want to get 1,000 shares on my account. I want to get 1,000 people who will, 1,000 people to engage with my content. No, remember when we began, we said that we are all in competition, not just with churches, not just with our message, but with just all of entertainment, with all of content promoters and producers. If you believe your message enough, if you believe in your message enough, then you want people to hear it. At Alfred Street, we don't just want to introduce people to Jesus Christ. We want to introduce people to Jesus Christ. We want people to live a life liberated and free. And what that means is I believe this message is going to bless you so much that I want to get you to listen to it. So that means when you listen to a sermon or when the viewership number on YouTube ticks up and up and up, what that means for us is that we are engaging with people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's why numbers matter. It's not because we need to become more popular. It's not because we need to become more popular or we want people to we want to go viral. It's because we are talking about the message that behind it. I believe our message is going to liberate you. I believe our message is going to propel you into your purpose. I believe what we have to say is it's so good for you that you need to hear this. That's why numbers matter. And your data, the reason why data is so important, is because data tells you when to post, who's watching, how long people are watching for, and the time people are logging off. You need to go to your YouTube analytics. If you are on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, or you're on Instagram, study your demographic, study your community, study your groups, because what's important is you need to know who you're speaking to. Most content fails because it doesn't speak to the community who hears it. Most content fail because the people who are actually receiving it is in disengagement. So you can have an amazing sermon, you can have an amazing word, but the community is not receptive of it because because it goes over their head. So you want to produce content to people. You want to produce content so that people will be able to engage with your content in a way. Knowing your audience is most important in almost every search engine, almost every social platform has analytics. Learn the analytics. When I first got to Alfred Street, the first thing that I did was that I sent out a survey to all of the folks who had left Alfred Street, people who asked, we no longer need membership here. We've moved. People who moved to go to work. I sent out letters and I sent out communication to everyone so that I could figure out a way. How do I engage with you? I know we don't need to be your primary church, but how can I engage with you? What would be helpful? Would you like to know how we're still working and serving in the community? Would you like to hear some of the sermons that we believe to be really impactful? So now we've created spaces which will go right into our next point. Now we've created spaces for follow-up. This is arguably one of the most important aspects of online ministry, arguably one of the most important aspects of media ministry is you need follow-up. What and where does your community go when the live is off? That's what you need to be thinking about. Where does the community go to engage? We know it's not the church anymore because the church house has been closed because of COVID. So where is your community going when the live is turned off? Where is your community going? What happens to the person in front of the screen when they close the screen? How do you minister to them? You have to create avenues for people to engage with your content when you aren't there. That's how content works for you. So what we've done at Alfred Street, what people may not even know, because it's been targeted for a specific audience, so we haven't broadcast it. In our online community, we have a private online community Facebook group. Private. It's not searchable. It isn't for everybody. It's targeted for our audience. That's specific. It's specific. I don't want 10,000 people. I don't want 20,000 people on there. If it gets there, it gets there. But what I know, I want people to engage with the content. So after every sermon, I'll go on that Facebook post and I'll post a message that's similar. Hey, did you hear Pastor Wesley's last sermon? I shall not fear. And now we're engaging with the sermon. What'd you like about the sermon? How did that sermon make you feel? And all that is doing is creating community, and it's creating a space for people to follow up with the message and the word. That's so important because that's how content works for you. If all you're doing is posting, that's a good step one. But you need to also think about a new space and another place for people to follow up and engage with your content. How can I engage, and how can this work for me? So think about some follow-up methods: virtual small groups, private Facebook groups, and create that space, targeted monthly newsletters that goes to targeted audiences, only member specific Zooms that are targeted, not just for your membership, but for your virtual members. This is targeted community, especially for those. When you do your data analysis, when you do your research analysis of your community, what that should tell you is who's watching. Is this single mothers? Is this people in the north side of town? Is this people? You'll be surprised about who's watching your content. Who's watching your content? I see a question: how do you engage with your targeted group when they're technologically challenged? That is a good way. That is a good way to think about it. Some people, remember, technology goes beyond the internet. So engagement for some people might mean setting letters, having people mail letters to those who are sick and shut in. Remember, technology isn't just internet. How do you aren't internet friendly. You know what, beloved? I'm going to write you I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to write a letter to you that's going to explain, or you know what? Every sermon that I preach, I'm going to create bullet points and of notes and passages for you to follow up, and I'm going to mail that to all of our members. That use technology. That's the gift of the mail. That's the technology that you're using that's going to get to your members, especially your elderly folk. That's going to break down what you've been saying. Another way to engage with people, and then allowing people to have a space to return that letter. And if you're passing by the church, we're going to create a space for you to drop it off. That's just ways of engagement beyond. So don't just think of technology as the internet. Think of technology as a method, as a means, as a way to communicate, not just internet, but not just electronics, but a means of communication. Let's keep going. I know we are 1 minute over time, y'all. Y'all forgive me, but I do want to tackle this last point. Few points here, is that your community. Okay, Rev Marc, you gave me permissions. You know, every Baptist will say I'm almost done. So, so here we go. Community engagement. In community engagement, I want to challenge you to think of ways to have people serve during this pandemic. Don't just call it volunteer. Remember, don't just call it a volunteer. Call it service. So for us, how can we get folks to serve as e-group facilitators? How can we get folks, like we just talked about, how can we get folks to write down the breakdown of the sermon, and they're going to be responsible to mail it out? That's serving. How are we going to get, maybe we need people to serve as chat host moderators. And I would suggest you need at least 2 per service, but you need someone on YouTube, and then you also need someone on Facebook. How are we going to get people serving? And that's community engagement while online. So, sick and shut in. Let me get some volunteers. Let me get some volunteers who are going to call on behalf of the church, that's going to, for the sick and shut in, survey the community to know what the needs are in this moment. That's critical. When I'll tell you this, when I first came to Alfred Street and I sent out this letter, I saw a staggering statistic that haunted me to this day. And some people who had left, I had sent the questionnaire to about 1,000 folk. I think, or maybe it might have been 1,300. And the thing that haunted me, it came out, and it said that they had yet to find a church. They had just left maybe a year. They had yet to find a church. So Alfred Street Online, that YouTube was their primary means of spiritual edification. Now that haunted me, because then I began to think, what are we doing for them when the screen is closed? When the screen is off? What are we doing for them when they turn off their screen and when they walk away and the doors close? What are we doing for them in order to engage them? And some people wanted to learn how to keep serving. Some people wanted to say, I haven't found a church. This is still my membership. So, I said, you know what? I'm going to invite you and I'm going to challenge you. If you want to continue to serve, would you mind considering serving as a chat host moderator? Would you mind considering serving as an e-group facilitator? Would you mind, considering content, all of these, of course, you need to also create parameters by which you will, identify and go through verification and background checks, all of the above. But the point is, there is still a way for people to do service and to during this time. There's still time. There is still time for people to communicate and serve, even while they are not physically engaged. I'm telling you, there's still ways in which we can do, and there's more ways on this right now. Here we go. So our community summary. Numbers do matter. Numbers do matter. Data drives content. You need to do data specific and data driven content. I'm telling you, I can't begin to tell you how many people I have seen. I can begin to tell you how many people I have seen who had a powerful message and posted at the wrong time, who posted the right message at the wrong time, and all that could have been avoided simply by doing data analytics. But someone who posted, because they, someone who created an amazing graphic or had a right message, who had been speaking with their daily devotion with God. And after their daily devotion, in the morning at 7 a.m., they posted it, but realized nobody's up at 7 a.m. yet. And so they didn't hear the message, although the message was good. And now the messages get buried underneath a whole lot of algorithm in the system, and people never actually engage with the content. That's why data matters. Data will get your message heard. The data will actually get your message heard. I know it seems as if a lot of this is intentional. A lot of this ministry is intentional. It's about being specific on what you do. Again, your community needs a space when you're not live. Your community needs a space when you're not live. All right. Let's go to this final point of creativity. Everyone's ministry is online. What makes yours worth watching? Let's get into a few things. What's going to separate you in this field is excellence and innovation. Remember, I began it, and one thing Pastor Wesley likes to say, and during this time, live worship covered a multitude of sins. Live worship covered a multitude of mistakes. You know, when you were in worship, you know, when one thing went wrong, it was easily, quickly, you know, covered. You were able to pick it right up or whatever have you. Online ministry, those mistakes are exposed to the 10th degree. 10th degree. And I challenge people, before you do more, master what you do. Before you start thinking about before you start thinking about doing XYZ, your content, what you do, whether, you know, the first thing for many people who are here is your church. So one of the first things that you need to be concerned about is doing worship with excellence. Doing worship with excellence in a way that makes me feel engaged, in a way that makes me realize that you're taking this moment seriously. Before you can get to innovation, before you can get to making the difference, before you can get to talking about who can do what and who can't, you need to master what you do, and you need to do it well. I challenge people is to create sets. That sounds like a whole lot of production stuff. If you've ever been to Alfred Street, you realize that this building is not as big as it looks online. And so there is not a lot of space to work in. Also, because this church was built a few years ago, it was not built as a production space. It was not built as a creative space. It was built for a church and as a church. And so we had to get creative. Painting walls in order to create a different environment for your Bible study. You know, investing in different styles. We call it sets here. We call it creating different sets. And that's only because it's about changing the environment. The church, the sanctuary is pretty big. Remember, I said, because we're online, I want to make people feel like I'm in their living room when I'm presenting Bible-based content. I'm presenting as if I'm in your living room. And so I can't be in your living room in this big old sanctuary out here, but I need to get here. And so that's about, getting the right chair in order to sit in front of the computer. It's about making sure the space behind me, and y'all forgive me because I'm in my office here, but it's about making sure that the space behind me, it feels like a living room, so that it feels like I'm just talking to you. I know how many people register for this conference, and there's hundreds of people who registered, but I'm just talking to you. I'm not talking to everyone. I'm just talking to you, and we're having a conversation. And what that does is space in those sets, utilize it before. When you're talking about creativity, and I said this before, the question you need to ask yourself is, what has not been done before? That's when you enter into the space. And it's not just what hasn't been done as you need to create something completely different, but even if you're doing something that has been done, what wasn't done in that same thing. So remember, I gave it as an example. There was the pastoring during the pandemic. The pastoring during the pandemic was great. It was a great way for us to learn. But the creative elements are, okay, so what about these things haven't been done? So the reason why we created a documentary, because we felt like everyone was listening to these Zooms. Everybody was attending these Zooms. We want to do something different that will speak to the same truth, to the same point, but it's a different method. It's a different delivery. And those things we believe is what gets people invested in our content. And so let me just get to this. Let me get to these do's and don'ts, and that's where I want to be able to really do stop at 12 and respect you guys' time. The do's and don'ts, this is what I believe of online ministry. And I know, again, there's probably going to be some pushback, and that's all right, because it has to be centered to your community. But the first thing I will say is keep the essence of who you are as a church. Do not try to replicate another church or a bigger church because they have more followers. They have more viewership on that church. They have more followers on the church. No, you need to do what you do and do it well. Do not try to. People are logging on to your church because of who you are, not who you are not. So they don't want to see Alfred Street do what Elevation is doing, because that's not why they logged on to Alfred Street. I'm going to give you an example. I went to a conference for online ministers. And like 2 years ago, and I went there, and I saw them presenting a new way of giving, and the giving portal had people check out in about maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds. You know, it was quick. And I said, man, I want that. I want people to feel that when they're watching service online, that they don't have to, do too much. This thing is already giving. So I went there and I'm speaking with him, and he was just like, okay, so he's looking at our numbers and statistics. Like, man, your church, it seemed pretty successful. He asked me, how much we were bringing in. And I told him, he says, man, you'd be a fool to change it. Even though this seems better, even though that seemed good, he said, you'll be a fool to change it, because you're doing a way beyond the means, and your people have invested into the way that you already do it. So you don't need to change it. Changing it might actually make you miss out on some other things, because it's a different means for them to communicate. So don't get rid of everything. Don't get rid of everything. But the essence of who you are, what you do well, you need to keep. I know what they're doing over there across the street, or at the larger church in your city, or the larger ministry. This is what they do. But do not abandon who you are during content. People are going to your content specifically for what you have to bring to the table. This is also going to get some pushback, but good thing we only have 3 minutes, so I won't have a lot of time to engage y'all with it. I'm going to argue with you that trying to replicate everything you do on Sunday morning is a don't. This is going to be hard. Remember, I said keep the essence of who you are. I did not say keep everything. Online ministry, one of the most important things of online ministry is realizing that people's attention spans are low. And if you try to replicate Sunday morning, remember, church, church is a lot of church, and a lot of ministry is embodiment. It's presence, it's community. And that embodiment is not the same online. It just ain't. It just ain't. And so, we talk about this a lot in our churches. And I say, some of the folks that just try to get on Sunday morning and try to replicate Sunday like nothing has changed, you're missing it. This is the opportunity to for lack of a better term, to cut out the fat and to just expose the excellence of what you do well. So one of the hardest things that we had to do as soon as the pandemic hit, one of the hardest things we had to ask ourselves, what is essential about what we do at Alfred Street? What makes this feel like Alfred Street? That even though it's online, we want you to be able to know this is Alfred Street. So I'm not saying give up who you are, but I am saying analyze it enough, because you cannot replicate Sunday morning. So this is an opportunity, as I close, to experiment preaching and worship in different places in your church. I know that sounds radical, and for some people that may not work. That may take more conversations. I understand that. Try engaging different volunteers. Ask some youth to give you the list of things trending on social media. Have them give you what's trending, what's happening. You don't have to use it, but it's engagement. I'm challenging you to analyze your ministry in a way in which you can be ahead of the game. Listen, it's 12 o'clock and I know I'm over time, but let me just say this last thing. Know where to put your resources. I tell people this all the time. Nothing is worse than a well-marketed event that has poor technological or preparation. Nothing worse. It seems like it's going to be good. I get online, then in the first 5 minutes, the first 10 minutes, all I see is buffering screens. Know where to put your resources. Get the right equipment for your church. Doesn't have to be the most expensive equipment, but get the right software, the right programs. Get to these conferences so you can figure out what those programs are. And in another conference, we can talk about that, what those programs and what the ministry looks like. But know where to do your research. Y'all, it's been a blessing. I know I am out of time, but let's connect. Let's connect on social media. Let us connect on social media. I'm so excited. Thank you guys for talking with us. This has been the machine behind media. I'm going to be on here all day. I know there's a networking panel here. So I am here to network and talk to folks if you guys want to continue this conversation. But thank you all so much. It's been a blessing, and I hope to stay connected with you all throughout the day. Again, this presentation will be emailed at the end. So if you didn't have a chance to, or you came in late, this information will definitely be disseminated to the right folks. But thank you all again. Remember, there's a networking button. Definitely willing to network and be in touch, and whatever you all may need. I'm excited to connect and see everybody grow. All right, y'all have a good one.